Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph. Today's Saturday, September 20th, and it has been quite some time since I've come to talk to you because I've been away. My husband and I were on a 23-day trip that took us up to Newfoundland. It was lovely. And I fully intend to share details of that with you, but probably not in this video. I will probably do that in a separate video just to keep this one manageable. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I would love to know how you found it, if it just popped up on your feed or if someone shared it with you. Feel free to leave a comment. I like to know those kind of things. If you are a return viewer, thank you so much. And if you are one of my channel members, thank you so much for your contribution to help support the work that I do here on this channel. It's greatly appreciated. If you'd like to learn about being a member on this channel and the perks that gives you, you get one members video, an extra video per month, as well as some extra posts and photos as I can put them up. Clearly there have not really been any in this past month just because, again, I was away and it was not really easy to do that from the road, especially when we did not have very good cell service in a lot of areas. But they will be starting up again, not to worry. I have show notes for this episode that will be below the video in the description box, links to all of my projects, both on Ravelry as well as my project blog, which is called My Favorite Day. And I have links to everything else. My shop, which is Fiber Nymph Dye Works, the Ravelry group where we have a discussion thread for our current make-along, my email, all that stuff. It's all in the description box below. And if there is something that I talk about today that you can't find the information that you'd like, just leave a comment and I will be happy to reply and give you whatever information I'm able to. You're also welcome to email me if you have questions. So some specific announcements that I will make right now, just because we have been away and my shop was in vacation mode while I was away. I did have it set to go live again. I think it was the Friday before we got back. So anything in stock is currently in the shop, again, in regular mode, so you can check that out if you'd like to. I am very slowly starting to get the dye to order items back up in the shop as well. I'm taking this opportunity while they've been out of the shop to update the listings, mainly for consistency purposes, because over time they just aren't as consistent as I would like them to be. So I'm taking care of that, freshening them up and doing some little tweaks to make them more consistent across the site. So those I hope to have finished and back up in the shop by midweek next week at the latest. So anyway, yeah, if you want to know what's going on in the shop, the best way to do that is to be on my newsletter list. You can join my newsletter from any page on my website, which is fibernymphdyworks.com. Okay, let's start talking about some crafts. Because even though this was a motorcycle trip, and if you've been around and you know our motorcycle trips, I rarely ever have time to work on anything. And this was really no exception, but I did have a couple of days where I had lumps? That's not the right word. Chunks of time that I could knit, because we had 2 ferry trips over to Newfoundland and then back, so about 6 hours each. That made for some nice knitting. But I do have some other projects, so I've got plenty to share with you. Let's get started. The first one actually is a project that I forgot that I had even finished. Actually, I forgot that I had even made it at all, but you saw it last time. And this is a cowl that I have crocheted out of Handspun, and the pattern is, okay, everybody say it with me, the Fairweather Cowl by Jennifer Dickerson, also known as fiber flux. I've made countless of these cowls. I really enjoy them. I do think maybe, I want to say this was maybe the first one I made out of Handspun, but there may have been another one. I don't remember. But yeah, I finished this up before we went away, and it is complete. I will put it on. This one's a little wider from top to bottom and a little narrower, so I think it'll be really nice. You know, it kind of holds my hair in. My hair is so long right now, and it's raining, so it's super frizzy at the moment. But anyway, yeah, I think it'll be really nice with a winter coat on and just keeping the air out. So I'm very happy with it. I honestly don't know if I will keep it or give it away to someone as a gift, but it is finished and can be used however it works out. And now I have hair in my mouth. Yeah, lovely. Okay, and this was on a D hook. I pretty much follow that pattern as written. I do modify how many stitches I chain on to adjust the width sometimes. But I basically, it's just such a fun and meditative project for me to work on, which is why I keep making them. Okay, oh, and this one I did actually modify unintentionally. I just remembered, because when I started this, I had just finished a crochet project that had me doing half double crochets, and this usually makes use of double crochets. And so I started this accidentally doing half double crochets, and I didn't want to rip it out. So I alternated. I did 5 rows of half double crochets and then 5 rows of double crochets, and it worked out fine. You can't really even tell. Okay, I'm gonna have a sip of tea. Yummy. I would tell you what it is, but I can't remember. I will put it down here in case you're interested. I've been drinking it a ton. I really love it. Okay, next up are the 2 projects that I did take with me on the trip. I actually took 4 projects with me, but the other 2 never saw the light of day, so we're not going to talk about those. The first one of these 2 projects are my classic Halloween vibes socks. So this is one of my new expanded Inversibles colorways, and this is classic Halloween vibes for obvious reasons. I had originally cast these on as the samples for the colorway for the pictures in the shop. So they were done, I think, down to about this green row right here. Before I left, both of them were that same distance. And then I picked up and I just kept going. I'm doing them concurrently. And then I'm using Vivid Violet and Soft Black for the heel flaps, and then I'll use those for the toes as well. I usually alternate them, so this one will have a black toe and that one will have a purple toe. But this is as far as I got on them while I was away. Again, my only knitting time that I ended up with was on the 2 ferry rides, and then one evening I did knit for a little bit, and I'll tell you about that project in a minute. But anyway, this is just my usual 2x1 rib. I'm using a US 1 needle. This is my bounce base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. And I don't really know what else to tell you. Basic slip stitch, heel flap, and heel turn. Need to pick up to do the gussets, and I'll rejoin the self-striping yarn to do that. So that is that project. So the only other project that I did work on while we were away was one that I picked up on September 4th. September 4th was the first day of the Down Cellar Studio Pigskin party, and I wanted to make sure I got a chance to cast on my first official project for the Pigskin party. Those socks won't count because they were already cast on before the event started, which is fine. I knew that. But I thought, you know, I want to at least cast something on. So the project that I am working on, do I have a picture of it that I can show you? Oh, here it is. The pattern is called Same As It Ever Was by Sarah Jordan. And here is a picture of the hat. It's very similar to some other patterns that are out there. Sarah's a friend of mine and I have her pattern, so that's the one I'm making. It's where you start from the crown, cast on and grow the hat until you get it to the circumference you want. Then you knit down, and then you do the same thing on the bottom. You do your decreases and finish it off. And then you stuff the one end of the hat in the other end of the hat, and you have a double thickness hat. So I am making this one for my daughter out of some Schapelwool, can I say it right? Schapelwool Zauberperlen. I'm trying to find the project, where'd it go? Hang on. It's all stuffed in this little bag. Okay, so this is 6 balls of the yarn. These are those sets that have 7 colors that are basically sort of a color block gradient progression as they marl darker and darker, or lighter and lighter, depending on how you want to look at it. But I started with the one that's the solid blue. In the bottom of the bag. So here's what I've got so far. Not very much. In fact, the night that I cast on, I probably only got out to about here, and I put it away, and then I didn't work on it again until we were on the ferry ride back to Nova Scotia. It's not a difficult pattern. It's a little fussy. I'm finding it. I found it fussy to get it started. Part of that, however, was that I did not think about the fact that since I'm starting so small, I mean, I knew it started with the small beginning there. I didn't think about the fact that it was going to be very hard to magic loop on really short needles, and all I took with me was the 16-inch needles. Now I did have a pair of US 2s and a pair of US 2.5s, which came in handy because I ended up having to work on 2 needles for a while just till it got big enough to put on a single needle. I have not looked at the pattern, and I admit that this is fully my error. I should have read the pattern because I'm gonna assume that maybe Sarah discusses that in the pattern and maybe gives you hints for how to start it more manageably than trying to magic loop with a 16-inch circular needle. But I made it work. It's fine. It doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but it will as it grows. So hopefully I will have more to show you about that in the next episode. I think this is going to be a Christmas gift for my daughter because I don't actually foresee me getting it finished super quickly, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay. So those were my 2 projects that I worked on while I was away. I did, as I said, I took 2 other projects. I took a skein of fingering weight yarn thinking if I finished those socks, I could cast on another pair. And I obviously did not finish the socks. So that ball of yarn is just now well traveled. And the other one was my September charity hat, which I had actually cast on in August just as kind of a bonus hat for the month, but I didn't like what I was doing with it, so I ripped a lot of it out. So right now, if I remember, it is still just part of the ribbing. I may be at the end of the ribbing and ready to start the body of the hat. It is not here right now, nor is that other skein of yarn because we had an issue. This motorcycle trip, I was on my new Can-Am Canyon, which is a 3-wheel bike, and my husband was driving his sidecar camper rig that he built. So it's a motorcycle that he built a sidecar chassis and has it's a tow behind motorcycle camper, but he took it off that chassis and put it on as a sidecar. And that's what we camped in, and it was great. It's a bit of a complex machine, and it has some issues. And the roads of Newfoundland it met its match on those roads. And the last full day we were on the island, his bike experienced what I will call a semi-catastrophic failure of the rear motorcycle wheel that left it in a state that it was not possible to drive it home. My husband's very good at fixing things, but this one he could not actually fix. He was able to kind of band-aid it enough to be able to limp it back about 200 miles actually from where we were. We were in a very remote area. Get it from there to Channel Port aux Basques, where we were getting the ferry the next morning. So we were able to get it on the ferry and get it over to Nova Scotia, and we found a safe place that they were willing to let us keep it there until he could turn around and go get it. However, that meant we had to leave pretty much everything that we would not need for the ride home, because he had to ride on the back of my bike, and we had to manage to put everything that we needed for the last 6 days of the trip in my 2 side cases and top box. So clothes enough for both of us, toiletries, electronics, the other stuff like that. It was interesting. We did it. It was fine, but it was an interesting challenge that we had not been counting on. So all that to say is those 2 projects stayed in Nova Scotia for a while. He's actually on his way home now with the bike. He turned around. We got home Tuesday. I know I wasn't going to talk about the trip, but this is sort of related to what we're doing here. We got home Tuesday afternoon, mid-afternoon, and by Wednesday at lunchtime, he was already had the trailer hooked up and was ready to go and left to go pick it up. So he is now on his way back, and he should be home tomorrow night, I think, if I'm estimating well based on where I can see him on the Google map with location sharing. Anyway, I'm sure I'll hear from him tonight, but yeah, it was just, we had to leave so much, and it was wet. The camper was wet because it had rained, so I'm sure everything's going to be just lovely. It's going to be a swamp in there, but it'll be fine. We're getting the bike back. We made it back. It could have been so much worse. Okay, so, oh gosh, I'm not even 100% sure where those projects bags were. I think I had everything in a plastic bag. I really hope I had everything in a plastic bag. Okay. Anyway, stay tuned. I'll tell you next time how that worked out. Okay, so when I got home and after Bill left, I suddenly had like all this free time to myself. Nobody else was here. That was totally unexpected too. But it's been kind of nice because I had already built in a couple of like re-entry days that I didn't have to dive right back into work as soon as we got home. So I have been giving myself that space to enjoy some other projects, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about now. Okay, one thing I have been working on is spinning. I have revisited again this pumpkin BFL that I have been spinning, I don't know how long, well over a year at this point. I'm currently plying, you can see it behind me there, on my Sidekick. I'm working on plying 2 of these bobbins, and then I have this one and then the other one that's on my Traveler. I spin the singles on my Traveler and then usually ply on my Sidekick. This one, you might see it looks a little funky. I had an issue as I was spinning these singles. The bobbin broke. It didn't break, but this end of the bobbin popped off, like the glue or whatever they had used to assemble it apparently dried out, or it wasn't enough or whatever, and the tension from having all the singles on there just popped it off, which was a panic moment. I think I got everything back in a decent place. This is my leader, which is usually on that center rod. It's not right now, the center spindle there. But I'm hoping as I ply this, I don't run into an issue of any of the singles being caught back where I pushed this end back onto that spindle. You can see I have some like painter's tape in there. I just wrapped it around enough to give it something to hold it in there. So this one might be a little interesting, but hopefully I won't lose too much by way of singles as I'm doing that one. But I have a little bit of fiber left. I think the fiber I have left is probably going to be enough for about 2 bobbins, and then I can ply them, and I will be done with that spinning project. I will be so happy. This is some Briar Rose Fibers BFL that I have had in my stash well over a decade. I love the fiber. I love the color. I just would love to see it finished and have it all be yarn. I do not have a plan for the yarn, but I just want it done. It's been on the wheel way too long. So I have been working on that. And then the other thing I am working on that I started after I got home, and I do believe I showed you the yarn and talked about it as a future project, and that is the Cascade Mountain Cardigan by MJ's Off the Hook Designs. I will put a picture in here again to remind you of what the sweater looks like. It's pretty, it's crochet, and I love the feature of the granny square column down the middle of the back. Now, this is a sweater that is written to be one of two lengths, either short or long. The short one uses 3 granny squares, the long one uses 4 granny squares. I'm sorry, 6 granny squares. I want it to be 4 because I don't want it super long, but I also don't want it short because it's almost a little too cropped for me at that point. So I did 4, and I'm pretty much using this this pattern as a guide, and I'm following the directions, but I'm changing it up as I go in a way to make it fit me a little bit better, in not fit me like how it fits, but fit my how I like to crochet things and construct garments. So anyway, here is my center, my granny square center. Now the yarn is Cove, Blacker Yarns Cove, which here's the label. I don't know how much this is going to help you. This was their 16th anniversary yarn, and I know I did look up at one point what year that was. I don't remember now. It's, I'm sure, probably in my project notes. But anyway, I had purchased 7 colors of it, and I used 6 of the colors for these squares. There's only 5 rounds, so there's 1 color left out of each square, but I just sort of changed it up, and I like how it turned out. I did follow the pattern for the squares. I used a G hook because the pattern calls for a G and an H. I wish I would have gone down to an F. I think I could have done just fine with an F. And I also, as I did the first square, I thought I would like to have changed this up and done the granny square just the usual way that I do granny squares. Her pattern is written slightly differently. She has chain ones in between all of her clusters. I don't do that, and it does make a more open granny square. I'm not super fond of that look, but I didn't really assess the situation until I was done with the first square, and at that point I didn't want to rip out. So I just did them all that way. I did use her joining technique, which I absolutely loved. It's a little different than any other joining technique I've used with crochet before, and it worked really, really well. And it's not super bulky on the back either, so I'm very happy with how that looks. So that was the center panel. Now the pattern is not written to do the center panel first. The pattern is written to work from the cuff of one sleeve up the sleeve, and then you work the body section, and then you do the other one, and then I believe it somehow goes together with that center panel. I wanted the center panel first so that I knew what length I was going to be working with for the rest of the sweater. So that's why I did that first. And now I am working on both sleeves. And I am working them concurrently. And here's what I have so far. So those are my cuffs and my first 3 rows of crochet. I did change up how I'm doing these granny stripes. I'm doing it my way, not her way. I'm leaving out that single crochet or that chain in between the clusters. I like the look of it much better. I am following, well, I thought I was following the 2X size, and then I changed my mind. No, I'm going to follow the just extra large size. And even at that, my stitch count is different. It's the small size for the cuffs. I did the first cuff. Okay, I'm crocheting. Ooh, sorry. I am doing the crocheted cuffs, the crocheted ribbing. I thought for a little bit that maybe I would not do that, and I would just start here with the granny stripes and then go back and knit my ribbing. But I decided I wanted to give this a try. I've never done crocheted cuffs before or crocheted ribbing, so I'm doing it that way. And I really liked how it worked out. I think it looks very nice. But the sleeve count, the stitch count was huge, and it was like probably down to here on me, and I don't like my sleeves that big. So I ripped a bunch out and made it shorter. I also made it narrower. It was supposed to be, I want to say about that big. So I did modify the size, but I like how it's working out, and I think they're going to be really pretty. The only downside to how I'm doing this is I am using obviously 7 different colors. Now this dark blue, that's the cuff, I'm only using this blue for like the cuff and the bottom band and the neck band, so that's not going to be in any of the stripes. So I'm using 6 colors for the stripes, but I'm changing the color every row. That's a lot of ends to weave in. It is non-superwash yarn. I could maybe try felting it together, but honestly, by the time I do that, I can weave my ends in. I don't mind weaving in ends. So I just, every few rows I stop. I'm gonna stop and weave in my ends. That's what I did here. It'll be fine. So anyway, that is where I'm at on this sweater, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm hoping that it goes quickly. I'm working on it a little bit every evening, and hopefully I will have a nice, fun new sweater once the weather actually starts to get cooler. It can't decide what it wants to do. Though our leaves are starting to change. We saw some really beautiful foliage as we were driving down through New England on our way home. It's amazing how much the colors change just in a matter of a couple of weeks. Okay, so there was that. And then, oh, I have a sewing project and I forgot to bring it with me. Hang on a second, let me go grab it. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, this was sort of an impromptu project. I was not planning to do a sewing project. However, one of the perks of Bill not being here is I can get larger project stuff out and not feel the need to put it away at the end of the day. And that's what's going on right now. My sewing machine, you know what? To be honest, it's Bill's sewing machine. He has used it far, far more than I have. He purchased it when he was doing his boat covers a couple years ago. I have not used it very much at all, but it's our sewing machine. So it's out, it's sitting here on the dining room table. The ironing board is leaning against the wall over there. I'm just leaving it out until tomorrow when I'm done, because I think I might do another little project. But anyway, I made a bag. This is essentially, it's like a drawstring project bag. I made it because I needed a gift bag for a birthday present for someone. And, you know, it would be super easy for me to drive the 2 miles down the road to the dollar store and just pick up, you know, an inexpensive gift bag, right? But why do that when you can just haul out all of your sewing supplies and dig through your fabric to find that flannel that you bought and never used because you didn't have a plan for it when you bought it, and try to figure out how to create a drawstring project bag. Now I have made, that was sarcasm by the way, I have made drawstring project bags before, but it's been many years. And I did not remember exactly how I did it. So I was winging this in a big time way, but it worked out okay. So I have this pretty plaid as the main part of the bag. It is lined with muslin. And then I decided to create, after a false, here, hang on a sec. Okay. This was the original top of the bag, which you're going to say, oh, well, Lisa, it looks pretty similar. It kind of does, except the way I put this together, there ended up with like 6 layers of flannel up here. And then I had the drawstring going through here, but I only had it on like a one-sided drawstring. And all I had to use at that point for the drawstring was like ribbon, and it had no structural integrity. And there was so much fabric here that it was just never going to close. Like the most it closed was like this. It was not good. And so I sat it aside for a day, and finally, you can see what I did. I just cut it right off. And then I had rethought what I wanted to do. And this still isn't the perfect solution, but I like how it turned out. I ended up using 2 pieces of this sunflower fabric and just folded them over basically and put them over the edges of the bag. One here. So they aren't actually joined at the sides. That's what's a little wonky. Like you can't really see that they're not joined because the drawstring is in there and it kind of camouflages that. And for the drawstring, I decided to just bite the bullet and make my own fabric drawstring. I had this yellow quilter's cotton and I got it out and I cut it and used my bias tape tool that I've never actually used before. And I made 2 long pieces, so one goes through one way, one goes the other way, and look how nice that cinches up. Perfect. I can tie it in a bow, and then the recipient can also use it as a project bag because they also crochet. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's not perfect by any means. I am not a professional sewist, but I'm happy with the outcome. And when Emma was here today earlier, I showed her, because it's for her one roommate, actually the person who is receiving the birthday socks that I knit a while back. They're going to be going in here along with a couple of other little things. Anyway, I showed her the bag and I said, hey, would you like one? Because Emma has started embroidering in recent months. And she said, yeah, I would love to have one. So I'm gonna make one for her too out of different fabric. I have so much flannel. I don't know why I bought all this flannel, but it was back when you could go to Joann's and see fabric and be like, I want the fabric. So anyway, I'll use some of it. So yeah, that was a very interesting experience. It turned out fine and I got some sewing going on. I also am toying with the idea of maybe, since the machine's out, starting to work on that duvet cover for our duvet that needs to go out into the RV. I may do that, because if I do that and I start that before Bill gets home, then I can probably justify leaving the machine sit out for a while longer. Not that I really think I have to have a justification, but since that would be something that he knows I need to do for the RV, I feel like I would get fewer questions like, how long is this going to sit on the table? Although, in my defense, when he was working on those boat covers, our entire living and dining room area was totally disrupted with him having the sewing machine out for weeks while he worked on that. So, although the other project he did recently, he did downstairs, so it wasn't in the middle of our living area. Okay, anyway, so that's everything I've worked on. Coming up, along with, like, if I do sew another one of those things and continuing to work on these and working on my sweater. The other thing about the sweater is that does count now as a pigskin party project, which was another reason why I wanted to wait to start it. But the other projects that I've talked about before, and I really need to get a handle on them and get started, is the 2 blankets that I want to crochet for my daughter's 2 roommates for Christmas gifts. I think I'm starting to overthink them, and that's not good. I need to stop doing that. I keep changing my mind about how I want to make them. I do have some of the yarns pulled out for each of them actually at this point, but I need to get on the ball and get that firmed up and just start. Once I start, I am sure it'll be fine, but I need to get it started. You know how that goes? I'm sure you do. Everybody has experienced this. Sometimes starting is the hardest part, and once you get started, it just goes so much easier. So that's it. That's all of the crafting in my world right at the moment. As far as our make-along, the choose your own adventure make-along, that is what is happening all year long. You can participate in multiple ways. You can join us in the Ravelry group. We've got a pretty chatty thread over there, as well as a planning thread and a finished object thread. So those are all going on in the Ravelry group. You can also participate on Instagram in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Instagram page. By using the hashtag, which I will put down here so that I don't mess it up. And yeah, you can take part however you would like to. It really truly is a choose your own adventure event. It's, let's see, September. So this is the final month of the third quarter for the Make Along, which means by the time I do the next regular episode, I will probably be drawing prize winners for the third quarter. So that will be coming up. And then we have 3 more months, and I hope you will join in because it's never too late to start. You're always welcome to come along. So other than that, like I said, I'm going to hold off really talking too much about vacation because I want to do it justice. I can't remember if I mentioned this at the top of the episode or not, but I did sit down yesterday and recorded this episode. It ended up being over an hour and a half long because I was just rambling so much in between almost everything and talking about the trip, and everything was out of order. And I thought, oh, this is so silly. I need to redo this. So that's why I'm recording tonight and giving you the crafting stuff up front. And, you know, I did share a little bit about the trip, but I will save the bulk of it for its own little video because I know some of you really enjoy hearing about these trips that we take, and if you aren't interested, then you can just totally skip it. If you are interested though, I did post pictures on Instagram while we were away. I try to do that as well. I didn't do it every day because again, our cell service was really very spotty while we were on Newfoundland, and even in other areas we had connectivity issues, but there's probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 posts, and I shared different pictures and talked about what we did some of those days. So you can go visit that. That's my Fiber Nymph account on Instagram. Yeah, so that's coming up. And when we got home, one of the things, which was super funny because since we came home with only my bike and you know, most of our stuff was still up in Nova Scotia in the camper, there was very little cleanup for us to do. Usually when we get back from a big trip, you know, the first thing you're doing is you're unloading the bikes, you're taking everything out, like the camping stuff, the cooking stuff, everything needs to be cleaned. We couldn't do that because it wasn't here. I did 1 load of laundry with the clothes that we had worn on our way home, and that was pretty much it. Nothing much else to clean up. My bike does need to be washed, although so does my car. Just from sitting, it's so dusty. I looked at it like, what happened to you? Anyway, so yeah, when Bill gets home with the camper though, that's going to be the day that it's like, everything's going to need to be taken care of because again, everything was in there wet for like a week. Yuck. So it'll be fine. Yeah. Tomatoes. I have a ton of tomatoes in my garden. That was what I started to say when we got home. Like one of the first things I did was I went down to look at the garden, and you know, my kids were taking care of our house and the pets while we were gone, and Emma and her friend Heaven, who were here part of the time, they did pick a lot of, you know, the peppers and the tomatoes and gave them away, which was absolutely fine with me. I just didn't want to come home to a bunch of rotting tomatoes, but there are still a ton of tomatoes down in the garden that I really need to get to. Maybe that'll be a tomorrow project, so that I can do some canning. I did freeze a bunch before we left just because I didn't have time to do anything else with them, and I didn't realize how many were down there at that point. So there are a lot in the freezer, which I can just unfreeze. That's thawing. I can thaw those and, you know, process those into sauce or, you know, whatever. I don't know if I'll do that or not. We'll see how I handle that. But anyway, yeah, tomatoes. All right, I'm gonna stop saying tomatoes now. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, I'll be back soon with a recap of our Newfoundland trip. And I can show you things that I purchased while I was there. I only got to one yarn shop. but it was fun. But again, most of our souvenir-y kind of stuff was left in the camper, so it's not even here for me to show you. Anyway, all right, that's it. I will talk to you again in the next couple of weeks, and until then, please take care of yourself. I know that this feels weird having this as an addendum here, but like, I know while we were away and in Canada, we weren't getting the news as much as we would if we were here, but we got enough to know that a lot transpired while we were gone, and it was hard and heavy to like be witnessing that and not being here. You know, it's different. And knowing we were going to be going home after all of these things had transpired here. And one thing I will say I learned about myself while we were away is that my mental health does so much better if I am not plugged into not just the news, but not plugged into social media every day the way I usually am when I'm here at home. I noticed a major difference with myself, not having that constant feed of, you know, even if it's not talking about politics or world events or whatever, just the constant, look at this new thing, look at this new thing, look at this new thing, it's like, it's constantly bombarding you, and you kind of get numb to it because you're used to it, right? We see it every day when we're on our phones a lot. Unless you're one of those people who has excellent self-control and does not get too consumed with social media, then I'm really proud of you and wish I was more like you. But I have been trying to be a little better about that since I've been home, because I noticed a huge difference in myself and my own mental and emotional well-being when I was away from it. And so that was very thought-provoking for me to realize that there is such a change in myself when I'm not online constantly. So anyway, I hope you're well, and I hope you're taking care of yourself in the light of anything going on in our world, because there's always something, right? But please take care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, all those ways. And yeah, we have to be in it for the long haul. Don't let those things like eat up all your energy, because we need our energy, right? We need our energy for the good things, because there are still good things too. Anyway, all right, that's it. I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Love you guys. Bye.